Good evening, and we're coming to you live here from the Fairway Hotel and Spa out here in Rand Park. Absolutely beautiful, as you can see. We're relaxed. We're having an absolutely fabulous time, and thank you once again to Olympic. Follow them on social media, that is on Facebook as well as on Instagram. Get yourself some very, very lovely apparel. As you can see, I'm donning a lovely sporty and some dope ass sneakers. But talking about sneakers, the man with the other sneakers is on. Cyrus, how you doing, my brother?
I'm good, Malo. I won't say the brand name, but I am shining, I can tell you that.
Cyrus, I mean, we've been talking a lot about sports and Nedbank golf and everything, but obviously the big ticket item end of the year is the FIFA World Cup. Looking at, I think, the African teams, I think that's a good place to start.
Yeah.
To look at potentially their groups, who potentially could be the banana skin in those particular groups, or maybe one or two sides who you think, you know, against certain oppositions, you fancy the African teams to get further.
Look, you know, the crazy thing about every World Cup is that we always hope as a continent that finally we'll have a team who will get into the semifinals.
100%.
Where we're like, okay, these are our guys.
Yeah.
We
Who are
even
we
tried to
backing?
go
Yes.
Bagana, which was an absolutely terrible name. But the thing is that, you know, our African nations have got great players. We see them in world FIFA, you know, like competitions, they're doing quite well. You know, we almost want them to be like those world beaters again. And I think we've got some good chances here. So when we look at it, we've got sort of 3 West African teams, 2 North African teams. You've got Cameroon, Senegal, and Ghana from West Africa. Then you've got Tunisia and Morocco from North Africa. It's tough to see really how well they'll all do, but I have my money on Senegal to really progress. They're in Group A. And Group A is a really, really interesting one, and it's a nice one for us because it's got Qatar, Ecuador, obviously Senegal, and then you've got the Netherlands. Of those group games, Senegal will look at Qatar and say, we're the African champions. We should be able to beat these guys.
But
Sadio
the
Mane,
home run
he's
advantage, and no one really knows what to expect from Qatar. Could they not be the team that maybe surprised a lot of people? The Netherlands.
People said the same thing about Bafana, and we managed to give people a big game. But I think also we don't watch a lot of Qatari football. We don't know who. Maybe they've got a bunch of Brazilians, you know, from numbers 1 to 20. So it's one of those where you just don't know. And these teams will have to have done their homework. The converse is true. Qatar has to stop Senegal. So it's not just us having to, or us as the African nation, having to play up to whatever they can do. They have to stop us. And we've got a guy in Sadio Mane who is in fantastic form at Bayern Munich, doing so well there. Even somebody like Kalidou Koulibaly, who's playing at Chelsea now, and Edouard Mendy, these guys have been in high-pressure situations, high-pressure games.
Played against the best players.
Exactly. And so they'll fancy their chances. Then you look at a game like Ecuador. Senegal will think, okay, fine. What we maybe have to focus on is trying to get 4, maybe even 5 points out of this group. We beat Qatar, we draw against Ecuador or beat them, and then we're playing the Netherlands. So anything can happen in those kinds of games. So I think Senegal will look at that and think, yeah, we're pretty good.
And the Netherlands for you, I mean, are they a guarantee that they're going to win the group, or are they going to have to look at it and say, look, if we're not at our best, potentially we could finish 2nd or maybe 3rd as well?
It's tournament football.
Yeah, that's how it goes.
Tournament football. Anything can happen. And the Netherlands have showed that they have the ability to flame out at any World Cup or European Championships. So they'll fancy their chances. They know they've got the players that can beat any team. But, you know, when you've got these 11 guys versus the other 11 guys on a pitch, anything goes. And I always feel that's something that every coach will say to their team. There are no minnows when it comes to a 90-minute game.
Definitely not. Moving on, Cyrus, to Ghana. I mean, a lot of people looking at this Ghana side, we see what Thomas Partey does from an Arsenal point of view, controlling the midfield. In his country now, is he able to then replicate that form? Or the rest of the players good enough, the Ayew brothers, to be able to then take them to potentially the next round of the FIFA World Cup?
So we always do this every World Cup, especially as the African nations and sort of the smaller teams. Suddenly, we're getting guys who's got different ancestry be like, hey, you know what, my grandfather was Ghanaian. And so there's a few of those players who've been brought into this team. Very high-profile names as well. But when you mention the guys that you've mentioned, the Ayew brothers, who have been central to what has been good around Ghana for so long, as well as Thomas Partey, these guys are the backbone of what has been good with Ghanaian football for a long time. And there's been a bit of an identity crisis around Ghanaian football for a very long time. They've sort of been seen as like the younger brothers or the almost even cousins of the Nigerias and the Cameroons. But they've stepped into themselves here. They've got some really good players from the back all the way through going forward. Their biggest issue has been that they don't have a lot of goal scorers.
Yes.
That's something that has held this
Since
team back.
Asamoah Gyan, who I would say
Exactly.
was the last.
And Asamoah actually came out recently and said, you know what? I can always unretire for a tournament.
It's too late now.
Exactly.
Gyan is too late.
Exactly. But their group is one that is very tough.
Yeah.
There is a grudge match in here.
Let's
Uruguay
see.
is in their group.
Yeah.
And we
Tough one.
remember, I mean, you know, I don't know if I've ever forgiven Luis Suarez for what he did. But
2010.
it is what it is.
Taking us back.
So we look at that group, we say, okay, fine, you've got Portugal, who will be the team to beat. You've got Uruguay, who are a fantastic South American side, and then you've got South Korea.
Yes.
It's a tough group.
Very tough group.
It's a tough group. The only, and I dare call it a bonus for Ghana, is that there's question marks around Heung-min Son's availability because of injury. Portugal are the team that will really be probably
But we'll get to
beating
the
everybody.
European nations. Moving on to the next African side at the World Cup.
Okay, let's look at Morocco. Now, the North African teams are a really interesting one for me because they play great football and they do well at our continental tournaments. But when you take them to World Cups, they don't seem to have the right kind of form.
Sure.
So let's look at this Group F that Morocco's in.
Quickly.
Belgium is there, Canada's there, and Croatia's there.
Oof.
Now, this goes back to, well, how good are Canada?
Yeah,
we know that Croatia are great.
Yes,
They've been deep into a World Cup in very recent history, right? So Morocco are up against it, but they've got the ability, they've got some really great players, and like I said about people suddenly remembering that they've got allegiances, they've also been able to call up former French players who are able to play for Morocco.
Next team, Cyrus, in the interest of time, next team, African team at the World Cup.
Okay, I'll do two at once.
Yes.
You've got Tunisia, who should always be respected. They're in Group D. They're going to be playing against France, Australia, Denmark. Really tough for them.
Tough as well.
I'm not sure they're going to get through that group, but it's going to be a really, really important one. And then obviously we've got Cameroon.
Yes.
Now, the Cameroon, the Indomitable Lions are such a tough call because we know they're star players from the past, right? But who are their guys right now?
Currently, that's the thing.
And this is where you start looking at somebody like Eric Choupo-Moting, who plays at Bayern Munich. He's in such a great vein of form. I think they'll be fancying their chances. However, they're in Group G, Brazil, Serbia, Switzerland. It's going to be very difficult.
Tough.
So I think Senegal will be the one to back from an African perspective to go along. But who knows? Let's ask them and back the guys to beat some of these big names. Maybe Cameroon finally gets that win against Brazil.
Oh, that'll be so interesting. But stay tuned for the second half. We'll be looking at the South American and the European teams at the FIFA World Cup. Stay tuned. Thanks for staying with us here on Off the Pitch, and we're still shooting from Rand Park Hotel and their lovely spa. Who knows? Maybe I'll get a massage after this. But I'm back with Cyrus, talking all things FIFA World Cup. But let's look at some of the other teams. I mean, we know England and their media always hype their chances. Argentina, potentially Messi can get over the line and win a FIFA World Cup. Portugal, is it going to be a Ronaldo versus Messi situation? And a lot of people don't want to go there, but the other teams for you at the FIFA World Cup?
It might be a messy situation, but I mean as in an absolute mess.
Sure.
I think, so when we first started seeing that this was going to be a World Cup in Qatar, in the Middle East, my immediate thought was, who does this favor? Because for the first time, we're having a World Cup in that region. Hence, we're having it earlier because of the temperatures and that sort of thing. So I've often felt, okay, that might put the European teams at a disadvantage. Playing in those hot climates can be really tough. And so I started thinking maybe this is where the South American teams might come to the fore.
But are the stadiums not going to be cool? I mean,
they will be. They will be. Look, the reality is, you know,
the overall humidity of the country.
So you go into these spaces and you think, okay, so who will adjust to the climate and the conditions better? Because you're also far away from family, what's new, what's usual for you. I do think the European nations will look at this and say, why shouldn't we be the ones? And England will have a good chance because they've got some really fantastic players in their squad. They've built a really, really good team over the years. France will also look at this and say, this has got to be
Pogba,
us.
Without Kante.
But they've got so much depth.
100%.
So when you look at it, they've got Karim Benzema. They've got, I mean, you look at...
But the midfield battle, I mean, they won the World Cup with them as the 2 6s.
Definitely.
In a 4-2-3-1 formation. So without Pogba and Kante, Is that not a huge spine?
Every tournament will have a new star.
That's true.
This is how these things go, right? I mean, we look at it, and there was a young Thierry Henry when they won in 1998.
Yes.
He wasn't necessarily central to what happened to the other World Cup
but
chances.
He was involved.
So you'll always have these guys who will come up and really put their stake in the ground and say, I'm the one who's going to be next. Portugal will also look at this and say, nobody's talking about us, right?
True.
They've got an aged superstar and Cristiano Ronaldo, but Ronaldo isn't the be-all and end-all of this Portugal team. They've got Bernardo Silva. They've got Bruno Fernandes, Cancelo. The names are all over that pitch. And you look up and down and you're like, okay, this is a very decent side. So I think Portugal will look at this. Belgium cannot be written off completely, though they've been hit with another blow with Lukaku getting injured again, so they don't have the
main number 9 target man up front. Tell me something, sorry, 3 weeks ago I was speaking to Tiane around the whole concept of normally teams that win the World Cup have been preparing to win it 4 years prior. We saw that in 2010 with Spain. If you looked at how their clubs were doing, they were winning Champions Leagues. They were the best teams from a club level and translated that into country. Are you seeing any sides that maybe last World Cup weren't planning on winning that one, but grooming the young players, maybe a Germany, for the next one? Is that in your mind, or is it just tournament football, whoever plays better wins it? Or are they teams that plan way ahead?
It's a mix.
Yeah.
It's a mix. Like you can see that this Spain team is maybe, this World Cup is a little too soon for them because they've got a lot of youngsters in their team. The Germans, who I always love at any tournament, will fancy their chances, but they're also 1 or 2 players away from being good. I mean, Timo Werner has just been injured and he's out of the World Cup, right? But this is where I start to look at the favorites. I think people should look at a team like Argentina, though I don't know how far they'll go. Messi is fantastic, so you'll never count him out. But Brazil. Brazil, for me, are the favorites to win this World Cup.
Based off of what? Age? The players are now finding them at the right time.
Positionally, they have some of the best players in the world at every position.
Squad depth, you mean?
Yeah, squad depth. So you look at it, their goalkeeper, who is it, Alisson or Edison?
I see.
And they're one of the,
Back up in
two
every
best,
position.
right? You look at the centre backs, they've got names there. You look at their midfielders, they've got names there. And then the attack just speaks for itself. So I look at Brazil and I think they'll also come through this with a sense of determination. A lot of them haven't done well at the tournaments in the last couple, so this must be a chance. And Brazil is, I think, the only nation to have won World Cups on every continent.
Yes, true.
So
this
they'll
is
want
their
to conquer this.
Richarlison for you, or Jesus from a number 9 point of view, Firmino, how do you make all 3 of them play and fit? Or who is your number 1?
So let's remember, Neymar is central to whatever happens. So they'll just put whoever else works with
Up
Neymar,
front,
you know, and I think that's how they'll approach this. Brazil will know that it's Neymar and Vinicius. And then they'll throw in one other player. So
who's
could
best
be
suited for you to play in the striking position if they are wide?
I like Jesus because he does finish well, but he also brings other players in well. So his ability
might
to
not have those abilities.
Exactly. But Richarlison is also one of those who can get you a goal when you need it. I'll also say this about Brazil. There will be a hero that can come up from just about anywhere at any given time. So this is the samba football, and that's what we want to see. We just want to see a team.
It's been a while since they've won a World Cup, so I think potentially what you're saying about winning it on every continent, this might be on the African continent. I mean, if I can just poke you there.
That is true, but they always want to be a dominant force in any World Cup. And the last thing I'll say about Brazil is this. When you look at every single team's big game player, whether it be Messi for Argentina, Ronaldo for Portugal, Harry Kane for England, you look at them and you say, can this person step up? And this might be the time where Neymar says, I have to be that guy.
This is it now. This is it. Even though potentially he could be at the World Cup after this, given his age. Potentially. But this is for
him,
you, this is the time.
This is him at his peak. And yes, PSG are doing what they do and what have you. But the reality is, when Neymar is playing at his best, his club team plays well. And the same thing with the national team. And he's also, like, people don't realize how good his goal scoring record is for Brazil and how many caps he's gotten for his national team. He is the linchpin for them. So
Cyrus, from an England point of view, sorry to interrupt. How do you see the England from a defensive point of view? I mean, a lot of people saying Ben White should start for England. I mean, he's been playing absolutely brilliantly for Arsenal, even though he's playing right back. How are you seeing maybe the right back situation at England and who potentially is Trippier? There's a lot of players vying for that position.
Just remember, with any international sport, whether it be football, rugby, whatever, the coach will always have his favorites.
Sure.
The fans are the ones who get caught up in this idea of, oh, the form of this player, the form of that player. Always look at what the coach has done. Trippier is going to be the guy.
Okay.
He was that guy in Russia.
Sure.
And he's playing really, really well right now.
For Newcastle.
So it's happening, right? And the other thing is that he'll also rest on experience. When you go to a tournament, you don't just throw in guys who haven't got a lot of caps into the deep end. You have to try and play with the guys who've played against some of the bigger teams, have been in tough situations, and so somebody like Trippier will be that for England.
Absolutely brilliant. So Cyrus is basically saying Maguire is going to be there for England from a centre-back point of view, but no, we don't want Maguire. Let's see what happens at the FIFA World Cup. But stay tuned. Cyrus is going to be breaking down everything with regards to the NBA in segment 3. Stay tuned. Welcome back to segment 3 of Off the Pitch. We're still here with Cyrus Rogers, switching it up a bit, talking a little bit about NBA. And Cyrus giving us his scoop. But apparently there's a lot of drama on court, off court. I mean, what's going on in this
Malo, Days of Our Lives has nothing on the NBA. Nothing. So there's been so much happening. Let's start with the off-the-court drama, right?
Sure.
So, for instance, you had this issue with the Phoenix Suns that sort of started the season where their owner was facing a lot of different litigation where there was reports of him making inappropriate comments to people from a racial perspective, sexism perspective. He's now come out and said, right, I'm selling the team, which is something that Phoenix Suns fans have been wanting for ages. So Robert Sarver seems to be on his way out, though the team hasn't been sold yet. You then go to the Boston Celtics, where they had an issue because their head coach, Ime Udoka, was found to have had an inappropriate affair with a female member of staff. Now, the thing was about that it went against the Celtics Code of Conduct. It wasn't anything that was criminal in any way, so it wasn't like he forced anything.
Yeah, I was about to say, when you say inappropriate, I mean they're two consensual adults?
Yes. So it was a consensual relationship. The Celtics brought in outside counsel to help with this, to make sure that they did it the right way. Udoka was suspended for the entire season by the Celtics. And they said, look, the chances are that he's probably never going to coach the Celtics again. There's a lot of stuff, and you can look online to see who, why, and when. But the reality is he did something and he admits to it, that really went above and beyond what should have been happening because it was a subordinate as such. So that is one of the major issues. Then you go to the Brooklyn Nets. It's still more drama there.
Still more drama.
You have Kyrie Irving, who has been known to court a lot of controversy, whether it be the fact that he feels that the earth is flat or the fact that he's a COVID vaccine denier, all of that stuff. He recently then came out and shared some stuff on his social media around an anti-Semitic video that he promoted. He then was sort of forced to apologize. He at first didn't really give a full apology, but then a whole lot of heat has been brought down.
If I can just come in there, sorry, why does it seem with the NBA players, and I mean we see on all these reality shows, Housewives of, the NBA players seem to be all over the place when it comes to their off-the-court antics and behaviors, where maybe in a football perspective, it's maybe less so. I mean, is it an American thing? What is it about maybe American sports and their athletes? Which seems to be they love the controversy or the hype or the...
But it's the media coverage of it. So it's very different when you look at it from a different sports perspective. An NBA team has maximum like 17 guys versus a football team which will have like, and I mean soccer, which will have like, a complement of 25 players, if not a little bit more. So the coverage of these guys is not the same. This is also a country that has over 400 million people. So you're bound to have a space where people cover these things. And the other thing is, their sport is not just national. It happens on a regional basis. So that team, whether it be like Minnesota, will be the only basketball team in that region, which means that local broadcasters cover it, national broadcasters cover it, and international. So the exposure is like triple what you'd
And does
often
that get to the players, you think? It gets to their ego, their personality?
They're individuals. They'll be ego-driven. These are multi-millionaires, right? I mean, we're talking about people
and young people.
Like, for instance, let's say James Harden, right, who plays at the Philadelphia 76ers. He earns in excess of $40 million a year.
Sure.
So he's not really struggling for money. And so you'll have some downtime. And the thing is that if you probe into people's lives, we're not all saints, and people do stuff that isn't necessarily what others focus on, but it's when that crosses a line that there's an issue. That's the off-the-court stuff.
So on the court,
on the court. So we're staying with the Brooklyn Nets. There has been an issue. Kyrie Irving has been suspended by the team, and we're not sure what's going to happen with them. However, they have been struggling, and so they need to get back to some sort of winning form. They are nowhere close to where people have expected them to be, and a lot of people expected the Brooklyn Nets to go quite far. The LA Lakers also struggling again. LeBron James, Anthony Davis are just
What's
not
going
being able
on
to
with
get
them, in your view?
So they've got a new coach. They figured, get a new coach to see how that will go. And he started to try and change things around the system because the Russell Westbrook fit in there wasn't as seamless as they'd hoped for. It's changed, but the losing is still happening. So they're hopeful that things will get better. The Golden State Warriors, reigning champions, also struggling.
What's the frequency or the churn of coaches, managers from an NBA perspective? Is it as rife as the PSL, for example, in football, or the EPL, or are they quite, like, do they give you time?
Sometimes the PSL coaches will be chopped and changed like no man's business.
And moving around within the same
club.
Does that happen a lot?
It does happen. It does happen. Though you also find, especially now more recently, franchises are starting to turn to younger coaches who are, they don't have a lot of experience. And we're seeing guys, the youngest head coach in the NBA is Ime Udoka's assistant, former assistant coach.
How old is he?
He's 34 years old. You've got 2 or 3 others who are in their 50s.
But the future of sports is like that. I mean, you see in the EPL, even in the PSL, the Amazulu coach, very young people.
If only we could do this in politics, where, you know, we're not just looking at these older people trying to tell us what's happening. But sport is starting to understand that new ideas come from new people and from younger people. So the NBA definitely is leaning into that and allowing people the opportunity to get better at their jobs. And so, like I said about the Warriors in particular, they're struggling. That's also because they're trying to blood some of the younger players into the setup after a few of the older players left. So they are in a tough space. But I will say this. The teams to watch are the teams that were in the NBA Finals 2 seasons ago. The Milwaukee Bucks, who have Giannis Antetokounmpo, Nigerian, Greek, absolute demigod of a player. I love him so much. And the Phoenix Suns, who we said their owner has been going through, the team owner has been going through a lot, but the team's been playing quite well. And
Cyrus, before we wrap up, from a South African NBA or South African basketball at the moment, I mean, from a regional point of view, Gauteng, Cape Town, what is that looking like? I mean, what are the...
One of South Africa's best basketball teams is the Cape Town Tigers.
Brilliant.
They've been playing so well. They've featured at the Basketball Africa League, the BAL, and they've done quite well. They're part of the qualification for the next season of the BAL, and chances are that they'll go quite far and make the tournament again. So Cape Town basketball is really in a good place, but let's never discount Gauteng basketball as well.
What's bigger?
It's hard to say what's bigger. The sport is growing and it's very popular in every province around the country. But I think that the Cape Town Tigers are, they're the one team that everybody's talking about.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Before I let you go, your finalist or your preferred team for the FIFA World Cup?
FIFA World Cup, it's got to be Brazil.
It has to be Brazil.
It's got to be Brazil. For me, that's who I'm backing. And then Senegal from an African perspective. 100%. Hopefully we get that African team in the semi-finals.
Oh, that'll be absolutely brilliant. Senegal versus Brazil is potentially what Cyrus is looking at for the FIFA World Cup final. But thank you so much to Olympic for the partnership, and thank you to the Fairway Hotel and Spa. If you ever want to come here, play some golf, have a nice comfortable bed to sleep on, visit them at fairwayhotel.co.za. But thank you to you at home for watching, and we'll see you same time, same place next week. We out.